The fall Marcus Bellamy swirled the amber liquid in his crystal glass, a satisfied smirk playing across his lips as he surveyed the opulent restaurant before him. The chandeliers cast a golden glow over the assembled business associates, all gathered to celebrate his latest property acquisition. At 42, Marcus had built an empire of luxury condominiums and commercial properties that stretched across 3 states. Success, he often thought, looked good on him. "Another toast," Trevor Walsh announced, raising his glass. Trevor had been Marcus's college roommate and now served as his business attorney. "To Marcus, who always lands on his feet." "Unlike some people," Marcus added with a cruel chuckle, and the table erupted in knowing laughter. They all understood the reference. His ex-wife Diana had become something of a running joke in their circle, a cautionary tale about what happened when you didn't plan ahead. It hadn't always been this way. Marcus could still remember the early days with Diana, back when he was building his first development and she believed in his vision. She'd worked as a marketing coordinator then, bringing home a modest salary while he poured every dollar into his dream. They'd eaten ramen noodles in their studio apartment and talked about the future under threadbare blankets. But that was before the money started rolling in. Before Marcus realized that Diana, with her simple tastes and preference for quiet evenings at home, no longer fit the image he wanted to project. The divorce 2 years ago had been spectacular in its ugliness. Marcus's lawyers had ensured the prenuptial agreement was airtight. Diana walked away with almost nothing, while Marcus kept the houses, the cars, and most importantly, his empire intact. "I actually saw Diana last week," Trevor mentioned casually, cutting into his steak. "She was coming out of that grocery store on 5th Street, you know, the discount one." Marcus felt a familiar surge of vindication. "Really? Still shopping at bargain bins, is she?" "Looked like she was juggling 3 jobs worth of exhaustion," Trevor continued. "Dropped her bags all over the sidewalk. I would have helped, but I was running late to meet you." The table erupted in more laughter, and Marcus felt no shame in joining them. Why should he feel guilty? Diana had signed the prenup willingly. She'd made her choices just as he'd made his. If she'd been smarter, more ambitious, maybe she wouldn't be struggling now. His phone buzzed with a text from Cassandra Price, his fiancée of 6 months. The message contained a selfie of her at a spa, cucumbers over her eyes with the caption, "Getting wedding ready." 3 months to go, baby." Marcus smiled. Cassandra was everything Diana wasn't. Glamorous, social media savvy, and most importantly, she understood the lifestyle he'd worked so hard to achieve. With over 2 million followers on her platforms, she was the perfect partner for a man of his stature. "The wedding's going to be incredible," Marcus announced to the table. "We've booked the Grandview Country Club. Cassandra's planning every detail. It'll be the social event of the season." "Open bar?" someone asked. "Obviously. Only the finest champagne. We're expecting over 200 guests." Marcus pulled up photos on his phone, showing off the venue, the floral arrangements, the custom suits. "Cassandra insisted on sending invitations to everyone, even people we barely know anymore. She wants it to be this huge Instagram-worthy affair." What Marcus didn't mention was that Diana's name had made it onto that invitation list. Cassandra, in her enthusiasm and lack of knowledge about Marcus's past, had included Diana based on an old contact list. When Marcus discovered it, he'd actually laughed. The idea of Diana receiving that thick, embossed invitation at whatever shabby apartment she was living in now seemed like poetic justice. "Let her see what she gave up," he'd told Trevor over drinks last week. "Let her see what real success looks like." Trevor had looked uncomfortable for a moment, but said nothing. That was the thing about having money and power, Marcus reflected. People might privately disagree with you, but they rarely said so out loud. They needed you too much, depended on your goodwill and business connections. It was a lesson Diana had never learned. As the dinner wound down and Marcus signed the check with a flourish, he felt completely satisfied with his life. In 3 months, he'd marry Cassandra in a ceremony that would be talked about for years. His business was thriving. His reputation as a savvy, successful developer was unshakable. Everything had worked out exactly as he'd planned. If Diana was somewhere out there struggling to make rent, well, that wasn't his problem anymore. She'd had her chance to ride his coattails to success, and she'd failed to appreciate it. Now she could watch from whatever bargain basement existence she'd fallen into as he celebrated his triumph. Marcus Bellamy had won, and he never looked back at losers. What he didn't know, couldn't possibly have known, was that while he was toasting his success, Diana Rothwell was sitting in a sleek conference room 50 floors above the city, signing documents that would change everything. The rise Diana Rothwell pressed her fingers against her temples, staring at the laptop screen until the numbers blurred together. It was past midnight in her small studio apartment, and she'd been coding for 14 hours straight. The half-eaten sandwich on her desk had gone stale hours ago, but she barely noticed. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, not when she was this close to a breakthrough. Her phone buzzed with another notification from the bill collector. She swiped it away without reading. The electricity bill could wait another week. Everything could wait. What she was building was too important. 6 months had passed since that humiliating day outside the discount grocery store. Diana had seen Trevor Walsh drive by in his Mercedes, had caught his deliberate look away as her bags split open, sending canned vegetables rolling across the pavement. She'd gathered them up with shaking hands, tears of frustration burning behind her eyes, while strangers stepped around her as if poverty might be contagious. That night, she'd made a decision. No more tears, no more shame, only work. The app she'd been developing was called Nexus Solutions, a revolutionary platform that used artificial intelligence to connect small businesses with micro-investors. During her marriage to Marcus, Diana had actually been the one with the business degree and the creative vision. But Marcus had always dismissed her ideas, too focused on his real estate deals to consider that his wife might have valuable insights of her own. Now, alone and desperate, those ideas had become her lifeline. "You look terrible," Jade Thornton announced, letting herself into Diana's apartment with the spare key. Jade was Diana's former college roommate and the only friend who'd stuck around after the divorce. She worked as a software engineer and had been helping Diana debug code in her spare time. "When's the last time you saw sunlight?" "There's a window right there," Diana pointed without looking up. "I meant outside." "In the actual world," Jade set down a bag of Thai food. "Eat. Real food. Not whatever petrified thing that is on your desk." Diana finally looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but bright with determination. "Jade, I think I've got it. The algorithm finally works. Look at these connection rates." Jade leaned over her shoulder, scanning the screen. Her eyes widened. "Diana, these numbers are incredible. If this is accurate, your platform could revolutionize small business funding." "I know." Diana's voice cracked slightly. "I just need someone to give it a chance. Someone to actually look at what I've built." That chance came 3 weeks later at a charity gala for youth education. Diana had splurged on a clearance rack dress and talked her way into a volunteer position serving drinks. She wasn't there for the party. She was there because Vincent Hargrove would be there. Vincent Hargrove was a legend in tech investment circles. The 60-year-old billionaire had made his fortune backing companies that others had dismissed as too risky or too innovative. He had a reputation for seeing potential where others saw only problems. Diana had studied his investment history obsessively. If anyone would understand what she'd built, it would be him. She spotted him near the bar, distinguished in his tailored suit, silver hair perfectly groomed. Her heart hammered as she approached with a tray of champagne glasses. "Mr. Hargrove," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I know you hear pitches constantly, and I'm not supposed to be doing this, but I have 30 seconds of your time while I refill your glass." He raised an eyebrow, amused. "Bold. I'm listening. Small businesses fail because they can't access capital. Traditional banks won't touch them. Venture capital isn't interested in a bakery or a dry cleaner. But what if you could connect those businesses with thousands of small investors willing to contribute even $50? What if AI could assess risk and match businesses with investors based on genuine potential rather than just credit scores?" Vincent set down his empty glass, his expression shifting from polite interest to genuine curiosity. "You've built this?" "I have a working prototype. It's functional, tested, and the early data is remarkable." "What's your name?" "Diana Rothwell." Vincent pulled out his phone. Send me the details. Everything. I'll look at it tonight. Diana's hands shook as she entered her contact information into his phone. She didn't dare hope. People like Vincent Hargrove said things like this all the time, and then forgot about them by morning. But Vincent Hargrove didn't forget. He called her at 7 the next morning. "I've been up all night looking at your work," he said without preamble. "It's brilliant. Rough around the edges, needs refinement, but the core concept is revolutionary. I want to meet with you and your team." "My team is me and my roommate," Diana admitted. Vincent laughed, a warm sound. "Not anymore. Be at my office at 10. Bring everything you've got." The meeting lasted 6 hours. Vincent brought in his top analysts, his technology experts, his legal team. They poked holes, asked impossible questions, and stress-tested every aspect of Diana's platform. By the end, Vincent leaned back in his chair and smiled. "I'm prepared to offer you $15 million in seed funding," he said, "in exchange for 20% equity. But more than that, I want to mentor you personally. You have something special here, Diana. Let's build it together." Diana couldn't speak. $15 million. After months of eating rice and beans, of dodging creditors, of coding until her eyes burned, someone finally saw what she'd seen all along. "There's one condition," Vincent added. "You need to expand your team. Jade Thornton, your roommate, her coding is exceptional. I want her as your CTO, and I have someone else in mind for operations." The next 3 months passed in a blur of activity. Diana moved into a decent apartment. She paid off her debts. She hired a team of talented developers and business analysts. Nexus Solutions launched in beta and immediately caught fire. Small businesses signed up by the thousands. Investors loved the transparency and the innovation. Tech magazines wrote glowing profiles. Diana appeared on a podcast about women entrepreneurs making a comeback after divorce. Through it all, Marcus remained completely oblivious. He was too busy planning his wedding to Cassandra, too absorbed in his own world to notice that his ex-wife's name was starting to appear in business journals and tech news sites. But then, one morning, the thick, cream-colored envelope arrived at Diana's new office. Her assistant brought it in with the morning mail, and Diana recognized the embossed logo of the Grandview Country Club immediately. Inside was an invitation to Marcus and Cassandra's wedding. Jade found her staring at it an hour later. "You're not seriously considering going?" Diana looked up, and Jade was startled by the expression on her face. It wasn't anger or bitterness. It was something else entirely. Something like calm determination. "Actually," Diana said slowly, "I think I am." The wedding, the morning of Marcus Bellamy's wedding, dawned with crystalline perfection. The sky stretched endlessly blue over the Grandview Country Club, where white roses climbed trellises and champagne fountains sparkled in the sunlight. Bethany Cross, the wedding planner Marcus had paid a fortune to secure, checked her tablet for the 100th time, ensuring every detail aligned with Cassandra's extensive vision board. "The string quartet arrives in 20 minutes, Bethany informed Marcus, who stood adjusting his custom Italian tuxedo in the groom's suite. "The photographer is setting up. Your guests are beginning to arrive." Marcus barely heard her. He was too busy admiring his reflection, thinking about how this day would cement his status as someone who'd truly made it. 200 guests, including city council members, business moguls, and several minor celebrities Cassandra had befriended through social media. The wedding would be featured in at least 3 lifestyle magazines. Perfect. Trevor Walsh entered, already looking uncomfortable in his own tuxedo. As best man, he'd spent the morning managing last-minute details and keeping Marcus calm. "You ready for this?" "Born ready," Marcus replied, flashing his practiced smile. "Where's Cassandra?" "Bridal suite. Bethany says she's running a bit behind schedule, but everything's under control." What Trevor didn't mention was that he'd just come from the bridal suite, where he'd found Cassandra staring out the window with an expression that didn't match the joy expected from a bride on her wedding day. She'd barely acknowledged his greeting, too lost in thought. In that very moment, 30 miles away, Diana Rothwell was stepping out of a sleek black car at a private heliport. She wore a tailored navy dress that whispered expensive simplicity, her hair swept into an elegant updo. Vincent Hargrove had insisted on lending her his helicopter when she'd mentioned the wedding. "You're sure about this?" Vincent had asked the night before, concern evident in his voice. "I'm sure," Diana had replied. "Not for revenge, for closure, and maybe to remind myself how far I've come." The helicopter lifted smoothly into the air, and Diana watched the city shrink beneath her. 6 months ago, she'd been struggling to buy groceries. Now she was worth over $40 million on paper, with Nexus Solutions preparing for a major expansion. The irony wasn't lost on her. Back at the country club, guests filled the lawn. Marcus worked the crowd like a politician, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. He spotted several faces from his past, colleagues who'd known him and Diana as a couple. Their carefully neutral expressions told him they remembered how the divorce had gone down, but none of them would dare say anything. Not to his face. Not when his company controlled so many lucrative contracts. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats," Bethany announced through a discreet microphone. "The ceremony will begin in 15 minutes. That's when they heard it. A distant thumping sound growing steadily louder. People looked around, confused. The sound intensified, and then someone pointed at the sky. "Is that a helicopter?" Marcus froze. The Grandview Country Club had a strict no-fly zone for the wedding. What idiot would violate that? He watched with growing horror as the sleek helicopter descended toward the perfectly manicured lawn, its downdraft sending napkins and programs flying. "Who authorized this?" Bethany shrieked, her organizational nightmare coming to life. The helicopter touched down with surprising grace on the far end of the lawn, a safe distance from the assembled guests, but close enough to ensure everyone watched. The door opened, and Diana Rothwell stepped out, her dress rippling in the rotor wash. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. For a moment, he couldn't process what he was seeing. Diana? His Diana who'd barely been able to afford bus fare the last time he'd heard. Arriving in a private helicopter? The whispers started immediately, rippling through the crowd like wildfire. "Is that his ex-wife?" "Oh my God, the drama! Wait, isn't that Diana Rothwell? The woman who created Nexus Solutions? That app is everywhere right now. My brother invested through it." Marcus stood paralyzed as Diana walked across the lawn with the kind of confidence he'd never seen in her before. She wasn't the broken woman he'd mocked at dinner parties. She moved like someone who owned the world, and the realization hit him like a physical blow. Diana had done what he'd always claimed was impossible. She'd succeeded without him. Cassandra emerged from the bridal suite at that exact moment, drawn by the commotion. She took in the scene, the helicopter, the elegant woman approaching, and Marcus's stricken expression. Something clicked in her mind. Pieces of conversations she'd overheard, jokes she hadn't fully understood. Diana reached the gathering and smiled warmly at the crowd. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance. Traffic was terrible and I didn't want to miss such an important occasion." Marcus finally found his voice. "Diana, what are you doing here?" "You invited me, Marcus. Remember?" She held up the cream-colored invitation. "I thought it would be rude not to attend." Trevor Walsh couldn't help but smile. He'd always liked Diana, had felt guilty about how the divorce had been handled. Seeing her like this, radiant and successful, felt like cosmic justice. Bethany Cross rushed over, tablet clutched to her chest. "Ma'am, you can't land a helicopter on the lawn." "The noise ordinance alone, already handled," Diana assured her. "I spoke with the club manager this morning. Vincent Hargrove is on the board here. He arranged special permission." Marcus's face went from pale to crimson. Vincent Hargrove. The Vincent Hargrove knew Diana? Was helping her? How? Marcus sputtered. "How did you—" Diana's expression softened, and for a moment, Marcus saw genuine pity in her eyes. "I built something, Marcus. Something real. Something that helps people. You always told me I didn't have what it takes to succeed in business. Turns out you were wrong about a lot of things." Cassandra walked closer, her wedding dress trailing on the grass. She looked between Marcus and Diana, seeing her fiancé's face properly for the first time. The cruelty in his expression, the entitlement, the shock that someone he'd dismissed could surpass him. Everything Trevor had carefully avoided telling her, everything the other groomsmen had skirted around, suddenly made sense. "You mocked her, didn't you?" Cassandra said quietly. "After the divorce. You made her into a joke." Marcus turned to his bride, desperation replacing shock. "Cassandra, sweetheart, that's not—" "Don't." Cassandra held up her hand. "I've heard enough. I've heard the stories at your business dinners. The way you and Trevor laugh about people you consider beneath you. I thought it was just bravado, just guys being guys. But this—" She gestured at Diana, at the helicopter, at everything the scene represented. "This is who you really are." "Cassandra, you're being dramatic. It's wedding day nerves." "No," Cassandra said firmly. She turned to Diana. "I'm sorry for whatever he put you through. And congratulations on your success. It's clearly deserved." Then in front of 200 guests, Cassandra Price lifted the hem of her designer wedding gown and walked back toward the country club building, her bridesmaids hurrying after her in confused solidarity. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Bethany Cross looked like she might faint. Trevor Walsh tried very hard not to laugh. Marcus stood alone in his perfect tuxedo, his perfect wedding in ruins, staring at the woman he'd once dismissed as worthless. Diana stepped closer, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "I didn't come here for revenge, Marcus. I came because I needed to see you one last time to realize that I don't need your validation. I never did. You took almost everything from me in that divorce. But you couldn't take my mind, my creativity, or my determination." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried genuine forgiveness. "I hope someday you learn that success isn't about how high you climb or how many people you step on along the way. It's about building something meaningful and lifting others up with you. I forgive you for what you did to me, not because you deserve it, but because carrying that anger was exhausting, and I'm done being tired." Diana turned and walked back toward the helicopter, her head high. The rotors began to spin up, and she climbed aboard without looking back. Marcus watched the helicopter rise into the perfect blue sky, taking with it the last shreds of his carefully constructed superiority. Around him, guests were already pulling out their phones, no doubt sharing this disaster with the world. By tomorrow, he'd be infamous for all the wrong reasons. Trevor approached cautiously. "Marcus, Don't!" Marcus cut him off. His voice sounded hollow, defeated. "Just don't!" As the helicopter became a distant speck against the clouds, Marcus Bellamy stood amid the ruins of his wedding and finally understood what Diana had known all along. You could have all the money and power in the world, but without character, without kindness, without genuine respect for others, you had nothing at all. Diana Rothwell had lost everything and built herself back up into someone extraordinary. Marcus Bellamy had won everything and revealed himself to be exactly what Diana had escaped. And in the end, that made all the difference. The end.